In September 2020, we travelled from our home in Sydney to South Australia. This state has only just opened its borders, allowing us to enter in COVID-19. In the late 1800s, Patterson's curse was accidentally introduced in Australia. Jane Patterson brought the first seeds from Europe to beautify her garden. She could only watch as the native plant to the Mediterranean infested pastures for miles around. In general, the weed is toxic for livestock, although during drought, sheep can tolerate it for a limited period of time. South of Wellington, on the Mitchell Highway, a contemporary sculpture greets the traveller. Girders from a bridge which collapsed in 1989 have been upcycled to form the impressive structure. The dome suggests the sunrise, and the wind chimes represent stalactites found in the nearby caves. In the walls surrounding the artwork, various mosaics show aspects of the history and culture of the area. Like many other animals, turtles are busy looking for a mate. The highway is definitely not the ideal spot for it, and we take him or her to the grassy wayside. Cobar has been a mining town for over 100 years. From Fort Burke viewpoint, we overlook the usually busy open-cut gold mine. Today is a public holiday, therefore no one is working. Besides gold, copper and zinc are also found here and drive the local economy. Being springtime, everything is in full bloom. Travelling the endless roads of the Outback, it is good to know where to find the next petrol station. In western New South Wales, feral goats roam the rocky outcrops in ever-increasing numbers. With prices at market rivalling those of lamb, they have been a saviour for many struggling farmers. We make camp alongside a lovely dam, where the heady scent of blooming wattles permeates the air. A bearded dragon observes the bush repair on the collapsed camping chair. After a 1,200 kilometre drive, we reach Broken Hill, the frontier mining town in the far west of New South Wales. About 350 properties are officially listed as significant. Federation and Victorian buildings line the thoroughfare. The town is particularly known for its heritage hotels. Many of them have balconies adorned with so-called iron lace. In its heyday, pubs were essential as places of escape from the drudgery of working underground. Pro Hart is just one of over 20 galleries in the city. At the entrance to Kevin Hart's home, a Rolls-Royce is decorated in his unique style. Pro Hart was a miner and a passionate artist. He was given the name Professor by his mates, abbreviated to Pro. The artist's style was multifaceted, but many of his paintings depict miners and their everyday life. From an oversized park bench atop the immense tailing dump, excellent views over the entire settlement can be had. One of Australia's boom towns was forged out of a hill, almost pure silver, lead and zinc. A boundary rider set the starting point by discovering the world's richest mineral deposits. The disused timber head frame and some rusting machinery can be inspected close up and give testimony to the workmanship of the builders. In 1883, Broken Hill Proprietary Limited was founded, which later became just BHP. Since then, the so-called Silver City's fortune ebbed and flowed according to the commodity prices. The Line of Load Memorial is a symbolic representation of more than 800 deaths of miners killed in mining accidents. Up to date, 50 million tonnes of lead and zinc and 20,000 tonnes of silver have been extracted from the ore. Shingleback lizards are out and about looking for a partner. Many get run over crossing the road, but this one we were able to save.
Oh, he's so cute. Okay, put him down in the high grass.
Emu Dad sat on the eggs for 55 days. And now looks after the chicks for the next 2 years. O'Leary is located on the Barrier Highway. The pub is more or less the only building remaining after a devastating fire in 2015. The tiny settlement was established to service railway workers and travellers. It took the fire brigades from Broken Hill and Peterborough over an hour to arrive, and by then not much could be saved. The cause of the fire is unknown, but it started in the only permanently occupied building, the home of a merchant seaman. Gazanias, native to South Africa, feel right at home in Australia's hot climate. A lonely letterbox is the only sign of human presence in the endless plains. While soaking up the sun, the bearded dragon looks out for predators, mates and prey. Wouldn't it be handy to have a tree on which shoes grow? However, those look well past their prime. Parachilna. In the late 1800s, the old gang passed along here on its way to Alice Springs. The rocks in the area are 550 million years old. Marine fossils, some of the earliest creatures on Earth, have been dug up around here. The menu in the Prairie Hotel is truly feral. Camel, emu and kangaroos attracting the discerning diner. Late in the afternoon, we arrive in the ghost town of Farina, on the edge of the desert. In the campground, we have set up camp under a huge gum tree where birds are extremely busy. Mates need to be selected and nesting sites have to be checked out. Suitable holes are few and far between and competition is fierce. Some are already enjoying their new home, but others are still searching. The Anzac Memorial on top of the hill remembers the soldiers who paid the ultimate price. Around 1880, a few optimistic farmers settled here, believing that rain follows the plough. After a few years, the railway was extended and the settlement became the railhead and supply point for outlying stations and outposts. At its peak, Farina had 600 inhabitants. There were 2 hotels, a bank, a police station, a school, and even a brothel. Unfortunately, after a few good years, rainfall became scarce and the golden dreams of wheat and barley vanished. People moved away and over time the place was deserted. For the last dozen years, volunteers reconstructed buildings from heaps of rubble. Signs were put up explaining the use of the buildings. The underground bakery was restored to full use. For a few months in wintertime, freshly baked bread and pastries can be enjoyed. A visit to the cemetery makes us realise the hardship of living in such a remote place. High child mortality, women dying in childbirth, and infectious diseases like typhoid and dysentery claimed the life of many. Indigenous people have been harvesting the earth colours from this ochre pit for millennia. Ochre was an extremely valuable and spiritual item. The red, white and yellow pigments are used for ceremonial purposes, as medicine, and for art and to trade with. We enter the Flinders Ranges and drive through a dry riverbed to find another beautiful spot to camp. Many rocky gorges provide much needed habitat and protection for a multitude of flora and fauna. The display of wildflowers is especially spectacular in springtime. Goannas or monitor lizards are found throughout most of Australia. The historic town of Blinman was named after a shepherd in the region. He discovered copper, which started a mining boom lasting just over 10 years. Nowadays, the settlement borders on being a ghost town with barely 20 permanent residents. At least the local coffee shop provides good coffee and a Danish. As we drive along, we spot a rock formation called the Wall of China. The vista from the summit is absolutely magnificent. Spectacular scenery and abundant wildlife delight visitors to Ikara Flinders Range National Park. The Flinders Ranges, or just the Flinders, is the largest mountain range in South Australia. Starting just northwest of Adelaide, it continues for over 430 kilometres to the edge of the desert. It is hard to imagine that this landscape began forming 800 million years ago. The mountain ranges still look impressive, but they were originally at a height to rival the Himalayas. Over millennia, the rocks have been whittled away to its present size. The entire region was once covered in water, and in the residual sediment deposits, ancient sea life has been found. Our intention was to go hiking in and around Wilpena Pound. Torrential rain and the following closure of the steep tracks put a stop to our plans, so we just have to come back another time. Old Wilpena Station is one of South Australia's most significant pastoral settlements due to its well-preserved condition. Established in 1851, it was run for 135 years, but is now incorporated into Ikara Flinders Ranges National Park. As we travel into Peterborough, its significance as a railway town is evident. The town is a hugely important rail link between the mines of Broken Hill and Port Pirie. At its peak, over 100 trains per day pass through here. Many of the buildings in town are heritage listed. A group of motorbike riders are on the way to their local watering hole. Hidden away in a side street is this mural depicting some local history. The Tinsmith Cottage caters for collectors of anything old and unusual. In one of the cottages, a homely coffee shop has been established. We fortify ourselves surrounded by a lot of quirky bits and pieces before hitting the long way home. Due to unforeseen circumstances, our trip was rather short. However, we shall be back some other time.